Welcome to Congress in Context. Today we're taking a deep dive into the Congressional Record from Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Now, you might glance at the record and think, okay, sessions lasting only a few minutes. Sounds incredibly quiet, maybe even a bit sleepy for Congress, right? But as we unpack this, you'll discover that actually a lot of legislative wheels are always in motion, even when the chambers aren't buzzing with, loud debate or big speeches.
Yeah, it's fascinating because even on these what we call pro forma days, where the formal proceedings look minimal, the official record actually captures some really significant behind-the-scenes activity. I mean, you've got bills making their final push to the president's desk ready for a signature, and then you have brand new legislative ideas just starting their journey. It's all documented. So we're going to explore what these seemingly small entries really mean for you, for everyday Americans.
Right. So our mission today is to sift through this daily routine, pinpoint those key legislative movements that might otherwise just fly under the radar, try to understand the underlying dynamics at play, and crucially, connect it all back. How does it impact your life and, the direction of the country?
Okay, so let's kick things off. Let's unpack the start of this particular day, August 19th. Looking at the official record, the House met for, just 3 minutes?
Yeah.
10 a.m. to 10:03 a.m.
3 minutes, yeah.
And the Senate was even quicker, just 36 seconds. It almost sounds symbolic or something. What's the actual practical purpose of these super brief sessions? That's a really good question. Because it does look strange on paper. These are what we call pro forma sessions. It's Latin, means as a matter of form. And they serve a vital constitutional function, actually. So on August 19th, both chambers opened with these standard, though very brief, procedural actions. In the House, Speaker Mike Johnson appointed Mrs. Virginia Foxx as Speaker pro tempore, basically designating her to preside for that short session. The session also began, as they often do, with a prayer, this one by Reverend Stephanie Vader from Capitol Hill United Methodist Church, emphasizing themes like hope, empathy, humility, praying for a world where all beings flourish. Then they approved the journal of the previous day's proceedings and recited the Pledge of Allegiance. Standard opening stuff.
And the Senate's 36-second sprint, pretty similar.
Pretty much identical in function, yeah. In the Senate, Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, he was appointed acting president pro tempore by Mr. Grassley. Again, it's a procedural move. You need a presiding officer present, even for a few seconds. These brief sessions, they're vital for constitutional continuity. It means Congress technically stays in session, which allows them to receive communications, say, from the president, and it prevents certain types of appointments during long recesses without Senate input. It keeps the gears turning.
Right. It keeps the legislative machinery ticking over, even if it looks like nothing's happening on the surface.
Exactly.
So even on a day that seems so quiet like this one, we can actually see pretty significant legislative steps happening. It's not always about the floor debate.
Absolutely. It's often about what's moving through the pipeline. And one significant item captured in the record for August 19th, though the action itself happened a few days before, on August 15th, is the presentation of H.R. 1316 to the president.
Okay, H.R. 1316, what's that one about?
The title is To Amend the Export Control Reform Act of 2018 relating to licensing transparency.
Licensing transparency.
Yeah. It means it's now just one step away from potentially becoming law. It's waiting for the president's signature or, a veto. And this bill, it might sound a bit niche, but could have a real impact. By making export licensing rules clearer, the idea is to cut down on red tape for American businesses that want to sell goods overseas.
So potentially boosting international trade, maybe creating jobs here.
That's the intent, yes. More opportunities.
Got it. And what about the pipeline itself? Any major bills moving through committees, getting prepped for, wider consideration?
Yes, definitely. There's a pretty substantial piece of legislation, H.R. 3838. It's described as the bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2026 for military activities of the Department of Defense.
Okay, so this is the big defense spending bill.
That's the one. It covers military construction, defense activities for the Department of Energy, too. It's huge. And the key thing here is that it was reported out of the Committee on Armed Services with an amendment.
Meaning it passed a key hurdle.
Exactly. It successfully navigated that committee stage and is now moving forward. It goes to the committee, the whole House, for further consideration. This annual defense bill, it shapes everything from, say, veterans health care funding to defense research jobs in your state. It directly impacts national security, but also local economies all over the country. So its progress, even recorded on a pro forma day, is a major legislative development.
Okay, that makes sense. So Beyond bills that are already moving along or nearing completion,
Yeah.
what about new ideas? What's just starting its journey in Congress? What new bills were introduced?
Right, this is where you see emerging priorities. On August 19th, there was actually a whole flurry of new bills introduced. H.R. 4992 through H.R. 5012. Each one gets assigned to specific committees for review, and they all come with a statement citing the constitutional authority for the legislation. So looking at some themes in disaster preparedness, we saw H.R. 4992. This one aims to restore FEMA staffing levels using money already appropriated, introduced by Mr. Sazer and a group of others.
That seems timely, given recent weather events, strengthening FEMA.
Absolutely. Trying to bolster that national response capability, help communities recover faster. It went to Transportation and Infrastructure and Financial Services Committees.
And what about healthcare? Anything new there?
Yes. For healthcare access, there's H.R. 4993. This seeks to expand Medicare coverage for external infusion pumps and certain home infusion drugs that patients can't administer themselves.
Oh, that could be significant for people needing complex care at home.
It really could. Potentially improve access, maybe even lower overall healthcare costs for some families. That one went to Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means.
It's always interesting to see where you get bipartisan cooperation. Any examples of that popping up among these new bills?
There were. H.R. 4998 looks interesting. It was introduced by Mr. Liccardo, but with a large bipartisan group of co-sponsors. It addresses congressional oversight, specifically the domestic use of the Armed Forces Reserve components. National Guard, reserves, that sort of thing.
Oversight of domestic use.
Yeah, it highlights a focus on checks and balances within military operations right here at home. That's often an area where you see cooperation across the aisle, ensuring accountability.
Makes sense. And science and technology, anything pushing innovation.
H.R. 4999, introduced by Mrs. Loughran and Mr. Obernolt, another bipartisan pairing. This one aims to support fusion energy education and building up the skilled technical workforce needed for it.
Fusion energy. That's looking way ahead.
It is, signaling a push for that next generation of science and tech development. And another notable one, H.R. 511, from Mr. Vindman and Mr. Fallon. It requires a report on the threat posed by violent anti-Semitism as part of transnational extremist movements.
Tackling a specific security concern there. Okay. Now, I noticed there was a specific focus on the District of Columbia, too, H.R. 5003, introduced by Mrs. Norton. It proposes extending eligibility for allotments under something called the Rural Health Transformation Program to D.C. Why is that significant?
Well, Ms. Norton actually spoke about this in her remarks, entered into the record. She pointed out that this Rural Health Transformation Program, it's a big one, $50 billion, established by H.R. 1, was originally set up by Senate Republicans to only include the 50 states.
Excluding D.C.
Exactly. And she argues this potentially deprives D.C. residents of, quote, hundreds of millions of dollars, even though they pay the same federal taxes as everyone else.
So this bill is about equitable funding for D.C., treating it more like a state in this program.
That's the core argument, yes. It brings up that whole unique status of D.C. and fairness in federal funding distribution.
Got it. Now, turning to some, let's say, more contentious topics, were there any bills introduced that address issues known to spark pretty significant debate?
Yes, definitely. You always see those reflections of ongoing national debates. For example, H.R. 5005, introduced by Mr. Roy and a fairly large group of co-sponsors. This proposes creating a database of what they term sanctuary jurisdictions, and it would prohibit federal funds from being obligated or spent there.
The sanctuary city debate, that's definitely controversial. Which committees did that go to?
Judiciary and Oversight and Government Reform. So right into the heart of those policy areas. Then there's another one, H.R. 5006 from Mr. Stube. This aims to prohibit the release of taxpayer data, patient data, or vaccine data to the World Health Organization or to any foreign government.
Data privacy and international organizations, another hot topic.
Exactly. That one went to Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means. So both these bills really touch on highly debated areas, federal versus local power, international cooperation, data sharing.
Okay. And there are others too, right? A whole range.
Oh, yeah. Quite a few.
Yeah.
H.R. 4994, trying to phase out bleed air systems in certain aircraft. That's about cabin air quality. H.R. 5000, looking to limit educational requirements for some federal cybersecurity jobs, maybe to broaden the talent pool. H.R. 5002, aiming to reinstate certain NOAA employees and programs focused on extreme weather events. So a real mix of issues.
It shows the sheer breadth of topics Congress deals with constantly. Now, beyond these new bills just starting out, the record also shows Congress keeping an eye on how existing laws are actually being put into practice by federal agencies. That oversight role.
That's absolutely right. You see this clearly in the executive communications section. This is where federal agencies like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, they have to submit their final rules to Congress for review.
So this is where the laws get translated into specific regulations.
Precisely. The nitty-gritty details that affect everyday life. The examples from this day included EPA rules on things like regional haze, exemptions for certain chemicals, updates to state air quality plans for places like Oregon and Iowa, and FCC rules about, say, allocating FM radio frequencies or TV broadcast stations in towns like Matador, Texas, and Henderson, Nevada, regulating local media infrastructure.
And there were also several communications specifically about the District of Columbia again. What's the significance there beyond Mrs. Norton's bill we discussed?
Well, it just underscores Congress's unique and, frankly, direct role when it comes to D.C. Unlike states, the district operates under the direct legislative authority of Congress. So the D.C. Council, their local government, has to transmit its local laws, they call them D.C. Acts, to Congress for a review period.
Congress can actually overturn local D.C. laws.
They can, though it's relatively rare. But the mechanism exists. So on August 19th, Congress officially received several D.C. Acts. Things like the Vacant to Vibrant Amendment Act of 2025, aiming to deal with empty properties. Another one was the Parity in Workers' Compensation Recovery Amendment Act. And even acts designating street names, like there was one for Congress Cove Court and another for Reverend Dr. Judy Talbert Way.
Wow, even street names have to go through Congress.
Technically, yes, they get transmitted for review. It really illustrates that direct oversight Congress has over even very local D.C. matters.
That's fascinating. You know, one of my favorite parts of doing these deep dives is always discovering the human stories that pop up, especially in the extensions of remarks section. It highlights how Congress isn't just about lawmaking. It's also a platform for recognizing incredible work happening all across the country, celebrating people.
It really is.
Yeah.
And these remarks, they become part of the permanent historical record. They document significant community contributions, and they also show the values that members of Congress want to highlight. We saw some really compelling examples in the record for August 19th.
Like what?
Well, in the area of civic engagement and voting rights, Mrs. Angie Craig of Minnesota honored a woman named Joan Grow on her 90th birthday. Grow was apparently Minnesota's first woman to win a statewide election without having been appointed first, a real trailblazer.
Wow.
And she was a huge champion of same-day voter registration. Instrumental, actually, in Minnesota getting the title of the nation's votingest state.
That's amazing. One person's impact on democratic participation.
Exactly. It really shows how individuals can make a profound difference.
Any others that stood out?
Yes. Thinking about lifelong public service, Mr. Sanford D. Bishop, Jr. from Georgia paid tribute to former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. It would have been her birthday on August 18th. He highlighted her tireless advocacy for mental health awareness and treatment, including, her historic testimony before a U.S. Senate subcommittee back in 1979. She was the first lady since Eleanor Roosevelt to testify before Congress.
That's quite a legacy.
It is. And her extensive humanitarian work, too, with Habitat for Humanity, the Carter Center. It speaks to this deep commitment to using knowledge and compassion for public good.
Those stories really do bring things to life, beyond just bill numbers and procedures.
They absolutely do. And they were more focused on community leadership and education, too. Mr. Frank Mervan of Indiana recognized the 80th anniversary of the Urban League of Northwest Indiana. And he honored Dr. Vanessa Allen McLeod for 15 years of service there, highlighting their work for equal opportunities, housing, jobs, education for African Americans and other minority groups.
Important local work getting national recognition.
Precisely. And Mr. Benny G. Thompson of Mississippi honored Mrs. Manzola Randall Ross. She was a lifelong educator who, through Head Start, apparently shaped the lives of over 2,400 children.
Incredible impact.
It really underscores the power of grassroots education in our communities. He also honored a Mrs. Gloria Glover for over 20 years as a youth director at her church, highlighting her work in spiritual growth but also community service, like organizing meal deliveries for seniors, toy drives for kids.
It's the fabric of the community.
It really is. And then there were recognitions focused on advocacy and justice. Mr. Salud Carbajal of California honored Lisa Kawamura as California's 24th Congressional Woman of the Year. Her work is impressive. She's a lecturer, a faculty association president fighting for fair pay, but also deeply involved in serving the Asian Pacific Islander and Desi American community, including an organization called Suru for Solidarity, which supports immigrant rights and provides healing spaces for those impacted by incarceration. Real dedication to justice.
Wow, powerful stuff.
And one more. Mr. Ted Lieu of California honored Mark Salzberg, described as a political activist who really fostered civil discourse and supported groups like Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, Doctors Without Borders, highlighting individual commitment to social causes.
So a lot happening beneath the surface, honoring people, introducing ideas, moving legislation. Okay, let's try to tie this all together. What does all of this really mean for you, listening at home, someone trying to stay informed in, well, a pretty noisy world?
Yeah, let's connect it to the bigger picture. What's the takeaway? Even on a day that looks quiet, no big televised debates, no dramatic floor votes, the legislative process is constantly moving forward. It doesn't really stop. You've got H.R. 1316, that export transparency bill, sitting on the president's desk. That's a critical final step. You've had the huge defense appropriations bill, H.R. 3838, making steady progress through the House committee process. And all those new bills we talked about, addressing FEMA staffing, expanding Medicare coverage, they highlight ongoing national priorities, areas where lawmakers are actively seeking new solutions that could directly impact your safety, your health, your wallet. And bills like the ones on sanctuary jurisdictions or WHO data sharing, they reflect those active, often intense political debates that are shaping policy.
Right. So for those interested in digging deeper, staying informed, maybe even getting engaged, what are some practical steps? How can you find and actually read these bills we talked about, like H.R. 1316 or H.R. 5023, Mrs. Norton's D.C. bill?
The best resource, hands down, is congress.gov. CONGRESS.gov. It's the official website for U.S. federal legislative information. It's public, it's free, and you can search for any bill by number or keyword. You can track its progress, read the full text, see who sponsored it, check committee actions. It's all there.
Congress.gov. Okay. And you mentioned the Daily Digest.
Yeah, the Daily Digest section of the Congressional Record itself, which is what we've sort of been navigating today. It's like the executive summary for each day Congress is in session. Gives you a quick overview of chamber actions, committee reports filed, bills introduced. It's a great shortcut to understand the daily output without reading the entire, often massive record.
Good tip.
And I also really encourage you to think about those local initiatives and the incredible individuals honored in the extensions of remarks. You know, Joan Grove's voting rights work, community leaders like Mrs. Manzola Randall Roth making a difference locally. Their stories are a powerful reminder that civic participation, being involved in your community and country, it goes way beyond just casting a ballot every couple of years.
It's about ongoing engagement.
Exactly. You can always reach out to your own representatives, House members, senators about issues that matter to you. You can draw inspiration from people like those honored who are already making a real difference in their own communities. And maybe this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. How can seeing this process, the recognition of community leaders, the introduction of new ideas, even on a quiet pro forma day like August 19th, how can that inspire your own participation, your own role in shaping the future of our country?
That's a great question to leave people with. And that wraps up our deep dive into the August 19, 2025 Congressional Record. We really hope this exploration gives you a new appreciation for the diverse and continuous activity happening in Congress, even on its seemingly quieter days, and how every small movement, every bill introduced, every committee report contributes to that larger legislative landscape.
Absolutely. Remember, just staying informed about the legislative process, whether it's the big headline-grabbing bills or these smaller, seemingly routine movements, it's a key part of understanding how our democracy actually functions day to day and how you can engage with it effectively.
Thanks so much for joining us for another deep dive. We look forward to exploring more with you next time on Congress in Context.